Welcome, everybody. Thank you all for taking time to join us for today's webinar. I'm Ryan Weintier, Manager for Hamilton NG 911. I'd like to introduce Jennifer Dennis, who will be moderating the webinar today.
Hey everyone, today's webinar is titled Network Security in Your PSAP and is presented by Rob Leonard and Marty Pearson of the Hamilton NG 911 team. So today there are more threats than ever to networks affecting PSAPs and emergency service providers. This concern of network threat goes beyond a financial concern and becomes a concern for the public safety industry at large. We receive a lot of questions about what PSAPs can do and have extensive experience in this area, with Rob and Marty leading our efforts to protect networks all across the country. If you have questions during the presentation, please go ahead and type them into the question box in the control panel, and we'll revisit those and take additional questions at the end. Out of respect for your time, we will go through the presentation in its entirety and then open it up for discussion after the presentation is finished. So just a brief introduction about who we are. Hamilton NG 911 is a leading provider of next-generation 911 core services that allows emergency communication networks to accommodate modern communication methods. Hamilton NG 911 is a division of Hamilton Telecommunications. Hamilton was founded originally in 1901 and today encompasses 8 primary company divisions that provide telecommunications and technology solutions on a local, regional, and national basis, as depicted in the map shown on this slide. Hamilton provides contracted traditional relay and caption telephone services in 18 states and provides many of our services nationwide. So let's get started with our webinar and the information that most directly affects you. Today's panelists, again, are Rob Leonard and Marty Pearson. Rob is the Information Security Manager and Local Area Network Administrator for Hamilton, and Marty is a Network Data Engineer with Hamilton. Cumulatively, they have over 47 years of industry experience to provide to today's webinar. Thanks for being here today, and I'll let them take it from here.
Well, thanks, Jennifer. This is Rob.
And this is Marty.
We're really excited to be here. It's a very critical topic, and we're excited to be able to talk about it today. On this slide it says network security, who needs it? And I like this slide as an intro because it's a good question, because there can be some complacency out there, and this says anyone with a browser or email needs it. There's some other things that we'll touch on that kind of qualify other users without browser, without email capabilities that are also at risk, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go through the webinar.
But Rob, if my PSAP is operating in an EZNet and it's a controlled environment, network environment, why do I need to worry about network security?
Well, with an EZNet, I think there's a little false sense of security there, because it is kind of a segregated network at times. But there's 2 factors that I think myself and a good MSP will probably bring to the attention of a PSAP that's on an EZNet. The first one being physical security. Physical security is the ability to access, the buildings of a PSAP. Or any of the underlying infrastructure of a PSAP, but it doesn't. A segregated network isn't immune to somebody picking up a USB drive that's been purposely laid down for somebody to pick up and to put into a PC. And you talk about the human factor, and that's between the human factor and the physical security risks that are posed to a network. It still makes the EZNet still vulnerable.
You mean I shouldn't bring my USB drive in that's got the copy of my kid's birthday, a video, and plug it in and show everybody in the office?
Probably not on the network. iPad or your personal laptop would probably be a better way to do that. But you think about some of the shared networks too, Marty. I mean, these EZNets and these PSAPs aren't necessarily always on their own network. Sometimes they're shared with county, state, other local networks that really kind of open them up to the possibility of being somewhat compromised by some of the threats too. So touching on that shared network topology between local state networks that are sharing with the ESINet also poses a pretty significant risk as well.
Yeah, we've seen that numerous times where we think we're in a controlled environment, a controlled network, and come to find out somebody opened a hole through the firewall to allow something to happen. It didn't get closed, and so next thing you know, you've got a security risk.
Yeah, and that's true. The good thing about a squared away MSP is that they'll be able to tell you those things prior to them happening. So it's a great way to proactively manage what you think is a segregated network, and with the ability to alert you prior to any of the issues happening. It's a great way to really proactively manage that risk. You know, you talk about viruses, you know, I mean, what's one of the biggest security risks out there, and what viruses can do is bring the network and all the data really kind of to its knees. I mean, you look at the ransomware, and that kind of falls under that as well. You know, that ransomware, I mean, it locks everything up and requires you to pay a ransom. That's the name, ransomware, to unlock that data. And the sad part about that is twofold. The first is that most of the time you pay for that key to get your data back, and it doesn't work. The second is that 60% of small to medium businesses that experience ransomware in some form or fashion are out of business in 6 months.
PSAP doesn't have that luxury of going out of business, but that is true. If you get hit with ransomware, it can take your systems down. It could lock every executable, lock all your data. And being a PSAP, you've got to be up 365, 24/7. And so you just can't afford to take any risks.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's true. You know, in the private sector, you think about the impact that it has on a business, you know, whether it affects their reputation or affects their bottom line. And when you look at a PSAP, you know, the impact is lives. And, you know, we can probably all agree that reputation and bottom line is going to take a very far second to the public safety risks that are incurred when your network's down. So the stakes are considerably higher than in say a private business operation.
So are there any other security risks that we need to be concerned about?
Oh, and you know, you think about the different things that a good MSP provides and the controls you have to put in place in order to mitigate the risks. And you look at, you know, patch management for one, you know, where you're not only patching the operating system like Windows or whatever operating system that the end user is using, but you also have to patch the third-party software, you know, and names like Adobe, Flash, Java. Those are software packages that are, for the most part, reliant on making sure that their patches are efficiently implemented. Anybody that's been in the IT field knows the effect that Java and Flash have on a network if they're not properly maintained, and a good MSP will make sure that they do that. Backups, you know, antivirus, some of the things that we're all really accustomed to if you're in the field. Those aren't necessarily risks, but what they do is they mitigate risks that possibly could happen to a network, like ransomware. The best thing that you can do when it comes to ransomware is to have good backups. And so having that ability to quickly bring backups, restore backups, and then get back online is the quickest way to do that. And a good MSP will look at your risk matrix and what you're up against from a risk standpoint, and then and then suggest controls like that that'll help you get back up and running in the event something happens.
One of the other IT challenges that we face a lot of the times is operation inefficiency. You know, if you don't, just like your cars, your patrol cars that you use, if you don't keep the oil changed in them regularly, the tires inflated properly, you know, it's not going to run the way that it should. Operation inefficiency in a network goes the same way, and it's definitely an IT challenge. You know, there's things that should be done on a regular basis on your PCs, on your servers, just, you know, defragging the hard drive or deleting temp files, just cleaning things up, keeping things finely tuned. It's a real challenge to keep all of that done.
Well, and that's a good point too. You know, people think about risk, and they think risk is something that originates from the outside of the network, and that's not always the case. The maintenance of the network, like you alluded to, Marty, is paramount in making sure it runs efficiently. And so a good MSP will help you step outside of the box that you're in, look at the network from more of a MSP perspective, and start talking to you really about outside risks, but also the more manageable risks from the inside that are day-to-day maintenance of the network that will really help to not only increase the efficiency of the network, but to greatly reduce the amount of impact that non-maintenance would have on the network itself.
So what you're saying is a good MSP, a managed service provider, can really help offset these IT challenges that we all face as a PSAP.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a partnership. You know, I mean, it's the MSP talking to the PSAP and saying, not only are we going to help you implement risk controls, but we're going to help you understand them. We're going to help you to look for things that you normally wouldn't look for, not for any other reason, but because that's not their billywhack. That's our billywhack. You know,
yeah.
And so in order to properly have a partnership where it goes back and forth, mitigating risk, you know, there's a lot of education involved, not only of just the people that run the network, but the people that use the network as well. And we'll talk a little bit about education as we move forward in the webinar. But again, a good MSP is not somebody that you know, sends you a report telling you how good they do. There's somebody that works with you to help educate you on how to move forward, and that kind of alludes to the strategic issues too.
Yeah, it does. On and all plays into your budget unpredictability. We hear time and time again from managers, last month I spent several $1,000s and next month I didn't spend anything. And, you know, how do you consolidate that and turn it into a budget that you're going to be able to put before a board or before the county and say, we need this amount of money? A good managed service provider will be able to tell you information about your network, and your PCs and your servers, so that you'll know what the age is on those PCs, what the age is on your servers, and can help you budget for next year. We're going to put new servers in. Year after that, we're going to replace the PCs, or come up with a plan for doing all that. So really then you can budget and say, this much I'm going to spend every month, and that's what it's going to cost me to maintain my network in a peak and secure manner.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, Marty, and I kind of laughed a little bit with the combined 47 years of industry experience. Kind of shows our age a little bit here, but I'll tell you, in half a century of us working in the IT field, I know that was one of the biggest things that we had issues working through, and really making sure that the people that could make decisions had the information that they needed to make a good business decision. And with the unpredictability of a budget, you can really, you know, I don't consider that so much a risk as it is a challenge, and it's well put here as an IT challenge. But it's really hard to look at
being innovative and moving forward when you're being reactive to something that really takes the money away from the R&D and the push forward that PSAPs are looking for, to be innovative and to respond faster and to have interoperability. And so the budget unpredictability from a personal standpoint has been a huge tool to be able to give those numbers to the decision makers and to really forecast how we're going to innovate. And a good MSP will do that as well. I mean, they'll work with you to show you how to use the time that you're gaining back from a reactive risk mitigation standpoint to an actual proactive, future-looking renovation of your network. So it really gives you the time back, it gives you the money back, and it gives you the opportunity to be innovative. And that's a great point. That's a good thing to look for in a strong MSP.
So what are some of the things that, if we're looking for a managed service provider, what are some of the tools that they're going to bring along to be able to provide to a PSAP?
Well, a good MSP is going to come in and they're going to look at your network first and foremost. You know, they're going to look and see what it is you need. There are going to be MSPs out there that are going to try and sell you everything under the sun, and we've worked and seen a few of those. But a good MSP is going to come in, do a network evaluation. They're going to recommend, no matter what, they're going to recommend patches, whether it's for the operating system itself, or probably a close second, third-party patches. Again, Adobe, Flash, some of these. If you're running Office, there's Office patches.
But I've got a Windows XP on my desktop that doesn't need any patches anymore, and we're on a closed network. So do I need to worry about that?
Well, there's, again, false sense of security when it comes to the closed network. But you look at Windows XP, and if you go to Microsoft's website, you'll see end of life for XP was quite a few years ago. So with XP being on the network as an MSP, we wouldn't recommend that. Not necessarily because it's, well, quite frankly, it's end of life. And no MSP is going to recommend you use outdated software that the manufacturer says it no longer supports. It's taking a chance that doesn't need to be taken. You look at an operating system and it costs a couple $100.
Yeah, what that really means, end of life, means that the manufacturer is not going to be making any patches for that operating system or that software anymore. And if there is a vulnerability that's found out there, they won't patch it, and you'll be exposed to whatever that might be. What about antivirus? There's several out there that are free, though. Why can't I just use a free antivirus, Rob?
Well, you get what you pay for, and antivirus is probably one of the best examples of that. You know, I test multiple antivirus softwares just because I want to be in the know as far as their ability to stop viruses, and to be quite honest, the free ones don't. If anything, they probably do the exact opposite, and that's to put adware on your computer. And you know, adware is basically a malicious code program that basically throws advertisements at you instead of actually doing what it says it does, and that's block viruses.
But one of the good things about what an MSP brings, especially with the antivirus piece, is the management of it. You know, you've got multiple PCs, multiple servers in your network, and they can manage that antivirus and make sure that it's getting the definitions, make sure that antivirus is up to date. If there is something, it can report and alert that there was a virus on that PC or that server.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, and to go back to, you've alluded a couple times to a closed network, you know, as I do the rabbit ears, a closed network. you know, it kind of reminds me of a Department of Homeland Security white paper that came out here not too long ago that discussed legacy 911 services and their ability or inability to be hacked or compromised. And, you know, one of the things it says is that traditional 911 services typically operate over a standard voice-based telephone network, you know, and that they use software, computer-aided dispatch systems, and they operate on a closed internal network with little to no interconnection with other systems. But what they go on to say is that the relatively limited means of entry into those systems reduces the potential attack vectors, which is true. Anytime you can take away the internet, obviously you're decreasing your risk. You're not eliminating it, but you're decreasing it. But it says, however, cyber risk is still a concern and must be actively managed, even with legacy systems. And that's the overall error from the Department of Homeland Security. You see a couple white papers out from the DoD. I sit on a couple nationwide panels, and we talk about this stuff. And the best thing that we could give PSAPs is the education that not only are you opening yourself up to potential risk vectors by not really calling the network what it is, and that's just a network. You have to really be careful not to get lulled into that false sense of security that these legacy networks are really impenetrable because they're everything but. And that kind of goes into the backups. You know, you and I, we've always talked about backups, and nobody needs a backup until they need a backup. And they see that as a cost that really doesn't have an ROI. It doesn't have, it really doesn't make, I know PSAPs aren't in the business of making money, but they are in the business of saving lives. And if for some reason the data was compromised or some of the software that they use to dispatch those emergency services was compromised, the fastest and most efficient way to get those individuals back online is backups.
So what you're saying is I need to have backups. Mm-hmm. Well, I back up my server to an external hard drive, and I put it in my desk once a week, maybe once a month. Is that good? That should be good enough, shouldn't it?
Well, the first thing that pops into my mind are natural disasters, fires, floods, bad actors. And so, short answer, no. Those backups should be kept off-site. A good MSP provider would probably give you the option to house that data in their data center so that they don't have to worry about it and it's readily available. Because a good MSP isn't just going to give you the ability to back up. In my opinion, they should be giving you the ability to back up, a place to put it, a place to restore it, help you, because if you're needing a backup, you're needing some type of IT help, and a good MSP will be there to not only provide the data that we're storing for you, but give you the assistance that you need to expedite getting your network back up and functioning.
Well, and backups, just like antivirus and patches, are all managed through a managed service provider, and they'll be able to tell from dashboards that a backup failed, a backup isn't current, or
Right.
how many, there's been X number of days since this particular PC backed up. So it's just all a matter of managing it.
Yeah, well, and to get even granular, I mean, they'll be able to tell you whether that backup has increased by a certain amount of percentage of data since the last time it backed up, which would give the MSP an alert that something isn't correct. Chances are that there's some type of maybe mining going on, or there's some type of anomaly that is triggering the MSP's monitoring tool to notify the MSP that there's something wrong. So you can get very, very granular, and a good MSP will be very, very granular in what they look for on the network.
So I've got my patches, my antivirus, and my backups all squared away. I'm good to go. What other things do I need to worry about as far as services that might need to be taken care of in a security manner?
Well, in my personal opinion, and it's been validated quite a few times, is the number one risk to a network is people. People have thoughts, people have emotions, people have agendas. And in order to mitigate that risk, the best thing that you can do for your people is to have some type of an education service, whether it be somebody like me who goes out and talks to employees and gives them on-site, in-person training to PowerPoints that later require an individual to take a test to actually, prove that they've taken in the information and are better off for it and are more educated about the IT risks out there. MSP providers should do that for you. We do that for our clients. And that should all be part of the initial risk assessment that's done by the MSP really at the beginning of the relationship.
Yeah, it goes into a multitude of things, whether it be educating people, looking at the servers and seeing how the securities are, the shares are set up, who has permission to the different shares, who has permissions to log onto the server versus logging onto a PC. We even provide a service that will scan your network, scan your servers and PCs for things like social security numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And if we find that on there, we can mitigate that in an effective manner, because it's just information that should not be stored electronically.
Yeah, absolutely. The risk analytics portion of an MSP's toolkit is a very, very handy tool, because it not only goes out and looks for certain things, but it also gives you the ability to remove those things without interrupting the end user. All of these services and all of the things that we talk about today are happening in the background. If a person has an issue with their computer and the hard drive's filling up, it's not necessary to pull that person off of their computer. All that stuff can be done through the managed service provider's toolkit, which allows the person to continue working and allows us to do our job, where back in the day you had to actually have the person move. You actually had to sit at the device, whatever it was, in order to rectify the problem, and those days are gone, and that increases efficiency and gives a PSAP really the ability to do their job.
But why do I need a managed service provider if, one of my dispatchers likes to mess around with computers, and so he's kind of taken the charge of taking care of all of our network stuff? Why do I need somebody else to take over for him?
Well, most of the time those individuals aren't IT professionals. Those people are, not saying that they're probably not knowledgeable about the inner workings of a computer or something like that, but this is what we've done for the majority of our adult lives, and we're constantly, you look at the dispatchers, you look at the emergency medical service personnel, and they are passionate people. They love what they do. They love serving the community, and it shows. You look at an MSP, people like you and myself, we're passionate as well. It's in a totally different industry. It's in a totally different service area, but we're just as passionate about making sure that our clients are over the moon about the service that we provide. And you look at a PSAP, and they're over the moon about the service they provide too. So, not saying that guy who can change out a hard drive isn't needed and isn't beneficial to the PSAP. But what I am saying is that with a cost-effective, more efficient way of mitigating risk, it makes very good sense to have a good MSP do that for you.
Well, it also provides an opportunity for that person to maybe sleep a little better at night, or know that he's not going to get called at 2 in the morning when a server goes down.
That's right.
Because the managed service provider is going to recognize that and take care of it. But I've got IT staff, dedicated IT staff. Why now do I need an MSP, a managed service provider?
Well, every PSAP's going to be different, you know. A PSAP in central Nebraska compared to a PSAP in lower downtown Los Angeles are going to be have quite the contrast in size. So, you know, we could walk in there and we could say, you know, you don't need IT staff. But I don't think that really goes to the partnership between the MSP and the PSAP. If you're a large PSAP, you're going to need to have some type of boots on the ground in order for people like us to call to have certain things fixed. If the volume is high, you know, there's going to be certain situations where IT staff on the ground will be necessary. There will be MSPs out there that will try and sell you everything. They'll tell you that you don't need IT staff, we will take care of you. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes that's, you know, an attempt to get you to spend more money. What we do is we really take a holistic approach to looking at your environment. And if you need boots on the ground, you need boots on the ground. If you don't, we're not going to tell you that you do. But that whole assessment and that beginning of that relationship, that's where all of this starts to really come together after the assessment, so that people can really make an educated decision about the staff that they do or don't need.
So some of the IT services that an MSP brings is just day-to-day technology support. What that means is we monitor, manage, react to things, but also really we're proactive. That's the good thing about the set of tools that we have. They can determine that there's a virus. Okay, let's go ahead and get that virus reduced to just that one PC, or held to just that one PC. Or we're going to manage that by looking at maybe a hard drive's getting full on a server, and so we're going to go in and we're going to clean that up a little bit so that that server hard drive doesn't get full and takes the system down. Really, it's much more of a proactive way of doing things than a reactive. You know, in a reactive environment, what you've got is server goes down, you call your IT staff or you call your local PC support personnel. You know, they put down what they're doing, they come out and they take a look at it. You know, you may be down for an hour, 2 hours, a day. Where with a proactive way of doing it, we see that as hopefully early, catch it before it actually happens. We even got tools that will go out and monitor your hard drives and see if that hard drive is starting to fail. So we can go ahead and get that replaced on a schedule instead of replaced on, hey, I'm down, I need help.
Yep, that's very true. And, you know, back in the day, we had to wait for something to break in order to know it was breaking. And 95% of the issues that you and I used to have to work overnight to fix are now proactively taken care of before they even become an issue. And, you know, we always talked about speed of resolve. You know, that was a metric that we used to pride ourselves on, because that was really our measuring stick for how good of a job we were doing. Something happened, we reacted to it, and we were back up in X amount of time. Well, now we can't measure that. We can't measure that because we're already fixing problems before they have a direct impact on the network. So, which boggles my mind, and just the ability to have that tool set and to be able to be notified via text message or an email or whatever we decide the means of communication is. We now know what to fix before it needs fixed. And so you think about the impact that has on public safety.
That's huge.
It's gigantic. I mean, the ability to make sure that you're going to be up and running 24/7, 365 proactively is a huge leap in the IT industry.
Well, one of the other issues that we provide, good managed service provider is going to provide, is compliance support. You know, today there's not a tremendous amount of regulations that you necessarily need to have your network follow, but there's a certain set of rules that if you're doing on your network, then that will answer almost 80% of any type of compliance that you have to take care of. You know, we've seen HIPAA, we've seen NIST, we've seen PCI, and by just some common rules, some common things that we can help you take care of on your network will eliminate a good 80% of your work to become compliant.
Yeah, that's, you know, again, one of the boards that I sit on actually helps to revise one of the biggest and all-encompassing standards that was signed by President Obama during his administration in 2009, and that's the NIST standard. It's the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, and what they wanted to do there was to take all of the controls that could possibly be on a network and give the network administrators or the MSP the ability to go in and to identify, protect, detect, react, and recover, which is the cycle of risk, based on these standards. And so you go in, and obviously, you know, a PSAP isn't going to need controls that a nuclear power plant would need. But you're able to look at the 256 controls and pull the ones that work best for you or apply to your PSAP, put the controls in place to mitigate those risks, and then mature them. And what it's done is it's taken out the guesswork. For a long time, people didn't know, am I PCI compliant? Am I HIPAA compliant? What do I need to do in order to get compliant? It's taken all of the guesswork out. It's put it in the hands of people like us to go in and be able to say, considering your industry, these are the controls you need. Here are the mitigation controls that you can put in place, and then here's how you mature them going forward. So it's an amazing set of standards. They come out with the latest version of Revision 3, which Hamilton was involved in developing, and it's a very, very pinpoint way to assess risk and then to mature a security plan. So it makes our job considerably easier because there's really no guesswork. It's A plus B mitigates C, and it makes it very easy for us to implement those plans.
Well, one of the things that we found is going through and doing all of this, being proactive, providing that essential IT support, providing a good part of that compliance. You know, if we are doing our job and doing our job well, you won't even know that we're doing it, which brings along reporting. You have to have some reporting that comes along and says, hey, we took care of these issues during the month. You may not have even known that we took care of them. We stopped a virus here. We cleaned up some temp files over there so that the hard drives didn't fill up. We saw that a process was eating up more CPU than it should have, so we restarted it. And there's just the numerous things that can go along, and that all goes into reporting. And that reporting can include tremendous amount more to provide aging of your network, aging of your PCs, your servers, going back to that budget, helping you out, you know, through the reports that we can provide will help you out with that budget for knowing when you need to replace some of that equipment.
Yeah, reporting is a big deal. Like you said, if the client doesn't know or doesn't see or doesn't feel or doesn't experience you actually fixing a problem, there might be a disconnect of value there, you know. And so what we do is we provide reporting so that you can see, you know, if I had my network and I never heard anything was being fixed by my MSP, I would start to question the value of the MSP. And so what we do is we provide this reporting so that you can say, just like you were saying, Marty, this is what we did, this is what we stopped, this is what we fixed, this is the value, you know, so that you know you're getting your money's worth. On the flip side of that coin, I use reporting for trend analysis. You know, what is the use of the network? What is the use of the servers? How much data are we storing now compared to 6 months ago? And what's that percentage of increase so that we can forecast for scalability of the network? Those reports are invaluable when it comes to being able to really analyze them for forecasting. You know, when you're proactive, you get to go to these reports and you get to study them. You have the time to study them. You have the time to make recommendations going forward. And so, and again, the granularity of those reports is substantial, and that's something that the MSP brings to the table as well.
So how do we do all of that? How do we take care of all these things? We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people watching all this. Well, I picture the Department of Defense situation room, you know, and you've got the TVs on the walls, and you've got people who are intently watching those screens for issues from a national security standpoint. There's not a whole lot different with the Network Operations Center at Hamilton either. You know, there's the TVs on the wall. There's people that are trained and ready to react to situations that occur in real time. You look at this screen here and you see multiple PCs, servers. I don't know if there's a network switch on there or not. Well, we can monitor network switches too. And it tells you, you see one there that's blue, and that's most likely that PC is off. And the green represents the nodes on the network there that are in a acceptable state of operation. If one of those turns yellow or one of those turns red, you know, things happen. People react. We start doing what we need to do in order to mitigate whatever that tool is telling us is, and I emphasize, is about to happen. Now, there will be times where things just break, and that'll be the 1 to 5% that you'll be reactive. But this is really what we look at all day. This is what our staff looks at all day, and it's a great way to see in real time exactly, again, what's about to happen, and we can react accordingly. Yeah, there's numerous tools that we use. This is an example of one of them. Here's another picture of another one that we have. What this is showing is, you know, you might consider this to be your EZNet. It's a little bigger maybe in scope as far as it connects multiple locations throughout the United States. But the idea here is everything's green. Green is good. We like green. What that means is everything is up and running the way it's supposed to. If, and we have this up on a big screen, if this goes down, something will turn yellow or turn red depending upon what state it's in. And both of these tools that we have, along with numerous others, provide alerts. If one of these things on here go red, this screen will actually, the monitor will actually start sounding a siren.
Mm-hmm.
And so it tells us we need to take a look at it. But the other thing it can do is it can send a text message, it can send an email to the appropriate personnel. And that appropriate personnel may be us or whoever the managed service provider is. That may include, you know, maybe your local IT department, mm-hmm. that they want to keep track of, and they want to know when something's happening too. Again, it's a team, mm-hmm. And it's teamwork to make sure that you're staying up 24/7.
Yeah, and a good MSP will work with and develop a playbook with your on-site staff, so that the expectations of what happens if something does go south are well understood and meet the expectations of the people who, we all have bosses, and our bosses expect certain performance, and when those performance standards are understood, and it's easy to meet those standards. And a good MSP will put that playbook together, and so that all of the expectations are understood and that so the standards can be met. And really, it kind of goes back, like you said, Marty, to a full team effort from beginning to end, from inception to completion. From problem notification to problem resolution. And that's something that we do every day, and we take great pride in doing it. Well, to wrap it up, it looks like we're on the wrap-up slide here. Anyone who runs a network knows that there's some serious concerns out there. The challenges that we face in the IT world are exponential, and they're growing. I mean, there's no doubt that bad actors in the theater of cybersecurity and cyber war are getting smarter. They're trying different things. They're attempting to capitalize on certain things, and I can think about you think about the security cameras in Washington D.C. during the inauguration of President Trump, and 126 of 187 cameras that were positioned throughout the nation's capital went black, not for any other reason because the person could do it, you know. And so the network security challenges reaches way outside just the small box that we look at, or that we work in, or that we're used to every day. And so, from an IT challenges standpoint, having somebody that can take you outside of the box and kind of look at those things, and nobody probably thought about those cameras on that day, but I guarantee you they're thinking about them now.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just kind of goes back to fully managed support. I know I can't. Marty, I'm sure you'll attest to this. You need people. You need somebody that you can trust. You need somebody that can be there and not only meet your standard of what you expect from an MSP, but to actually exceed it, and to do it in a way that makes sense for what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, you may not be worrying day to day about your network like we do, but there's a lot of situations that can affect your network, and the good thing about a well-versed MSP is that they'll know exactly what those things are. They'll make you aware of them, and they'll work with you to mitigate those going forward.
Now, we've probably talked long enough. Why don't we throw it back to Jen and see if she's got any questions.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rob and Marty. We will go ahead and take some time for questions now. A reminder from earlier, please be sure to type questions into the question box in your control panel. And it looks like we have a question now. In your opinion, what is the single biggest risk for PSAPs today?
Well, this is Rob. My personal opinion on that is that whether it's a PSAP or any other network, I think the single biggest risk is people. Again, people aren't algorithms. People, they have emotions. They have agendas at times, and they have things that a machine doesn't, and those have to be mitigated. A lot of the time, just teaching somebody what not to click on in an email, whether they need to wear their badge or not. I mean, there's a lot of things that can be mitigated from a education or from a personnel risk standpoint through education. And so I think that's really low-hanging fruit. That's the best way to mitigate a lot of risk quickly. And a good MSP will provide an education program for your people.
This is Marty. One of the things that I think is the biggest risk is the unknown, and not knowing what ports are open on your router, what network securities you might be vulnerable to, is the biggest risk that you can have. And so partnering with an MSP will help you close that gap of what you don't know to what you know.
That's a good point.
Okay, another question says, do you help draft and implement incident response plans? How can you help in the event my PSAP experiences a cyber incident?
Yes, we do. We help draft and implement incident response plans on many different levels. Again, depending on going from small business to large business, no matter what the size of the particular network, we absolutely do write incident response plans. We come in, we talk to the decision makers, we talk to them about probability versus possibility. You live in Nebraska, is it possible to have an earthquake? Yes, it is. Is it probable? Absolutely not. So it doesn't make fiscal sense to put your efforts towards something that isn't probable. And we'll look at some of the things that are a little higher on the possibility ladder, and then we'll implement things to mitigate the impact that it has on the network in the event it happens. If you have an incident, we will absolutely be there. A good MSP must be. If you can't really say you're a good MSP and then not be there when your client is having an issue of any sort. So no matter what the incident, we'll plan with you. We will implement implement controls with you, and then we'll respond with you. It all comes back to the 5 cycles of risk, and the last 2 of those are to respond and recover, and we'll be there for you guys when you need it.
But the whole goal here is to not have incidents.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay. What are the next steps we can take to learn more about making sure our network is protected?
Probably the first step in that is to contact Ryan and via email or phone call, and we'll set up a time that we can delve deeper into the tools that we use. We could do a network evaluation to see what you have as far as PCs, switches, routers, servers, and the environment that is there. And then we'll put a proposal together to come up with a solution for you.
Yeah, risk assessment is absolutely the first step. Identify, is the first portion of the 5 cycle of risk, and until you identify what your risks are, you really can't move forward. And like Marty was saying, Ryan can get that set up to make that happen.
Thanks again, Rob and Marty. It looks like we've covered all of the questions, and thanks to everyone who joined us today. We really appreciate your time. Be sure to check out our website, hamiltonng911.com, for more information on our core services and new solutions, such as Text Connect and more. Our latest resource is actually a white paper highlighting real-time text, or RTT, and the details and timelines surrounding RTT. If you would like us to provide you with that resource, please let us know, and we would be happy to send it your way. And finally, we will make the recording of this webinar available for replay, and we'll send that out later in the week. That email will also provide an opportunity to leave feedback. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you next time.